three more bands: Nasum, Planes Mistaken for Stars, and S.O.D. I'm going to start with Nasum. They were a Swedish grindcore band. They formed in 1992. The vocalist and guitar player, Misko, I always kind of thought it was his band, but I guess he came a little later. But he did feel like the leader by the time they were releasing full-length albums. And the first album was called Inhale, Exhale in 1998. Came out on Relapse. I remember it had a lot of hype at the time. And it was more of a catchy, straightforward album compared to what's to come. I don't own that one, but good release. Probably the worst of the four, though. And I ended up getting the second full-length, Human 2.0. Definitely a unique album cover there. And this album was a big deal at the time. 25 songs. A lot of them are, it's like 30 seconds to 2 minutes, basically all of these songs. They've always, I thought, were respected as kind of next level grindcore, just given a bit of a notch more respect than other bands were getting at the time. And they put an album after this one called Hell Beat, another great one. But I bought their fourth and final album, Shift. This came out in 2004. Another amazing piece of next level grindcore. 24 songs, another Relapse release. And unfortunately in 2004, Misko, again, the singer and guitar player, he was on vacation in Thailand and died during that big tsunami that happened at the time. And the band ceased to exist. However, quite a few years later, I guess 8 years later, 2012, the remaining members toured again with Kijo, who was the singer from Run Sound, a Finnish death metal grindcore band. And I saw them co-headline with Brutal Truth. And I don't remember a lot of the show, but I had a good time. And that's it for Nasum. Definitely a bit of a change in direction. We're going to talk about Planes Mistaken for Stars. You can call them hardcore, punk, rock, post-hardcore. Very heavy, but I don't sense much in the way of metal influence. And I have their second and third album. This is their second one, Up in Them Guts. This was released on No Idea in, I don't know what year actually. Early 2000s, I would think. Yeah, I got into these guys just because I was vaguely aware of the name, but some guy I worked night shift with when I was young, he was into them and recommended them, and not a lot of people in my personal life have been into heavy music really, so I remember those and take seriously the recommendations from the people that I do know. And that's how I came on board with that band, and I especially like the album after that, Mercy. This came out in 2006 on Abacus, and one winter I listened to this album a whole lot, and I'll always kind of think of that time. But this is a 9 out of 10 album, and if I had to recommend one, this would be the one. And they broke up in 2008, and they reformed a couple years later, and I did not keep track of what they did. It seems they released one album called Prey in 2016, and they're still around. So I should look into that last release. And finally, probably the most well-known band on here for sure is S.O.D, Stormtroopers of Death. They were a group formed in 1985 in New York City, and they were a supergroup of sorts. They had, I'll make it brief, Billy from M.O.D, Dan from Brutal Truth, Nuclear Assault, a million other bands, and Charlie and Scott from Anthrax. And they were S.O.D was known as one of the early crossover bands, which is a mix of punk and thrash. Generally not my thing, but when they were formed back in the late 90s, they were getting a lot of press, and I got this one, This is Speak English or Die, their debut album. And this was the re-release. They came out in 2000, or sorry, came out in, again, I think it was about 1999. And this is a release that was celebrating 1 million worldwide sales of this album. And I actually couldn't believe it when I was young. I said they really sold 1 million copies of an album like this worldwide back when CDs sold, but still impressive. Very politically incorrect album. I don't think it's really supposed to be taken seriously. Just offensive humor mixed with just commentary. Kind of cool book. Again, this is a Mega Force special edition. Nice collage here. And I mentioned that they reformed and put out an album in 1999, Bigger Than the Devil. As you can see, its album covers a playoff of Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden, and the album title is a playoff on the whole Beatles thing. This album is definitely not as good as the first one. It's definitely less politically incorrect, but still offensive humor in it. And again, definitely not something I'm going to play much these days, but it's cool to have. And from what I gather, they released a final release in 2007. It was called Rise of the Infidels. It was their last release. Don't think they're doing anything at all anymore. And that's it. Nasum, Mistaken for Stars, and S.O.D. Thank you.